Something is already moving toward you right now. Not toward someone like you. Not toward people in your situation. Toward you specifically. You with this exact history, these exact scars, this exact silence you have been sitting with. Not because you finally figured out the right affirmation. Not because the universe randomly decided it was your turn. This has already been happening. You just did not have the words for it yet. And the reason you have not seen it arrive, the reason the door keeps almost opening and then going quiet again, is not bad luck. Something in the way you're moving is standing directly in front of it. Welcome. If this is your first time here, this channel exists for one reason: to tell you what is actually happening beneath the surface of your life, when everything on the surface looks like nothing is happening at all. Subscribe before we go further, because every week we go deeper into the patterns that most people never identify, the invisible architecture underneath stagnation, grief, and the kind of stillness that feels like failure but is not. Stay until sign number 6. That is the one most people find impossible to explain away. And the final one changes everything. There are 7 things, and at least 3 of them are happening in your life right now. The first one is this: you are doing everything right and receiving complete silence. You already know what this feels like. You show up, you put in the hours, you follow the advice, you make the effort, and then you wait, and the waiting becomes weeks, and the weeks become months. And at some point, a specific kind of exhaustion sets in, not the exhaustion of someone who gave up, but the exhaustion of someone who kept going and was still not seen. Most people assume this silence means the direction is wrong. It does not. It is not failure. It is not a closed door. It is root building. A researcher at the University of Virginia named Erin Westgate has studied what happens in the space between effort and result, and what she found is that the human mind is extraordinarily poor at reading the middle of a process. We interpret absence of visible return as evidence of wasted effort. But growth that has not yet surfaced is still growth. What this means for you is this: the season you are in right now is not the end of the story. It is the underground part of it. Roots do not show. They're not supposed to. They're building the structure that will hold everything that comes next. You are not wrong to keep going. You are doing the one thing that actually works. But what comes next is the pattern most people never identify. The next one is harder to see because it wears the face of productivity. You are preparing instead of moving. There's a specific kind of stillness that does not feel like stillness because it is full of motion. You are researching. You are refining your system. You're taking the course, organizing the workflow, reading one more book before you begin. You feel productive. You feel responsible. You feel like someone who is doing things right. Most people assume this is diligence. It is not. It is distance, dressed up as discipline. Erin Westgate's work at the University of Virginia identified this exact pattern, that the mind will substitute easier, productive feeling tasks for the one uncomfortable action that would actually create movement. Not because you are lazy, because the real action carries real risk. Real action can fail. Preparation cannot fail. You can always prepare better. What this means for you is this: there is one thing on your list that you keep moving to the end. One step that never seems to be the right time for yet. That is the exact step that is keeping everything else waiting. The breakthrough is not behind another course. It is behind that one step. And that is not even the part that changes things. The third pattern is the one that takes the longest to see because you are inside it. You are having the same year again. Not a similar year. The same one. The same frustration appearing in a different situation. The same problem with a different name. The same outcome from a different beginning. You can feel it when someone asks how things are going, and you hear yourself giving an answer that sounds exactly like the answer you gave 6 months ago. Most people assume this repetition means the circumstances are against them. It is not the circumstances. It is the instruction. Martin Seligman, the psychologist whose work on learned helplessness changed the clinical understanding of human motivation, found that when people experience repeated outcomes that feel outside their control, the brain begins to stop registering new options. Not because the options disappear, because the brain stops scanning for them. It is already decided. What this means for you is this: the repetition is not punishment. It is a signal. Every time the same problem appears in a new shape, something is asking you to make a different choice at the root, not a different reaction on the surface. The pattern ends when the root decision changes. Not before, but here's where it gets uncomfortable. What comes next is the part no one talks about. The fourth sign, and this one requires honesty. You are destroying what is arriving. Not consciously, not with intention, but at the moment an opportunity finally appears, at the moment the thing you said you wanted actually shows up something and you delays it, argues with it, finds reasons it is not quite right, creates friction where there should be none. Maybe you suddenly get too busy. Maybe you find something wrong with it. Maybe you talk yourself out of responding. Maybe you respond in a way that closes the door you spent months waiting to open. Most people assume this is fear of failure. It is not. It is fear of arrival. Clinical psychology has named this the upper limit problem, the threshold at which self-image and incoming reality stop matching. When what is arriving exceeds the version of yourself you believe you are, the mind closes the gap. Not by expanding to meet what is coming, by reducing what is coming to match what feels safe. What this means for you is this. The question is not whether good things are coming toward you. They are. The question is whether the version of yourself you are currently inhabiting is large enough to let them in. This is not a character flaw. It is a calibration problem, and calibrations can change. This is the part most people miss. The fifth one is quiet. It does not announce itself. But once you see it, you cannot unsee it. You have become invested in the story of why it is not working. Not invested in failing. Invested in the explanation. The explanation that protects you from the risk of trying one more time and being disappointed one more time. The explanation that makes the stagnation make sense. The explanation you have rehearsed enough times that it no longer feels like a story, it feels like a fact. Most people assume this is just honest self-assessment. It is not. It is armor. And armor is heavy. Martin Seligman's research showed that over time, a helplessness narrative does not just affect mood, it physically changes the threshold for action. The more fluently someone can explain why something cannot work, the less energy they will invest in attempting it. What this means for you is this. The explanation is not protecting you. It is replacing the thing you actually want. Every story about why it cannot happen is a small vote cast against the version of your life that is still possible. You do not have to believe it will work. You just have to stop funding the story that it will not. What comes next is the one researchers did not expect to find. The sixth one is not just happening around you. This one is happening through you. Your body knows. Not in a vague, poetic sense. Literally, physiologically, your nervous system is holding the record of everything your mind has been carrying. The weight in the shoulders that does not lift after you sleep. The knot in the upper stomach that appears before anything difficult. The tightness across the back of the neck that arrives before you even know you are anxious. Most people assume this is stress. It is not only stress. It is a posture toward the future, built in the body before the mind catches up. Research on somatic memory, the way the body stores unresolved experience, shows that physical tension is not a symptom of stress. It is stress that has been converted into structure. The body has learned to hold a certain shape because that shape once felt like protection. What this means for you is this. You cannot think your way out of what your body has built into its default state. The mind will follow the nervous system, not lead it. Until the physical holding pattern releases, the mental one stays in place. The body is not a metaphor here. It is the mechanism. I want to speak directly to someone watching this. You have been carrying something for a long time. Not weeks. Long enough that you have stopped calling it grief or loneliness or disappointment. You have just made it part of how you move through the world. You carry it into rooms, and most people cannot see it, and that invisibility is its own kind of exhaustion. Maybe it was a loss. Maybe it was the end of something you had built your entire sense of the future around. Maybe it was the moment someone you trusted made a choice that changed everything. Maybe it was recent. Maybe it was years ago. But you know the moment I'm talking about. You carry its weight in a very specific way. I'm not going to tell you that was nothing. Martin Seligman's work showed that the deepest predictor of long-term stagnation is not circumstance. It is the silent belief that the pain was deserved, that it happened because of something unworthy in you, that the silence that followed was a verdict. What this means for you is this. The silence was not a verdict. It was a pause. The pause before something had to become different. You were right to pay attention. You were not wrong to feel it. The last one, and this one changes the shape of everything that came before it. You are working harder in the wrong direction, not in the wrong field, not in the wrong relationship, not in the wrong city, in the wrong internal direction. You are applying enormous effort, real effort, serious effort, the kind of effort that deserves results toward a version of yourself and a version of your life that you no longer actually want. Not because you chose wrong, because you chose it years ago and you've been too afraid to admit that the direction has shifted, because admitting that would mean the effort was somehow wasted. It was not wasted. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way." The misalignment is not an obstacle to the path. It is pointing directly at it. What this means for you is this. The exhaustion you feel is not the exhaustion of someone who is failing. It is the exhaustion of someone who is ready to stop pretending the old direction still fits. The work does not need to be harder. It needs to be honest. Here is what I want you to hear after all of this. The 7 things we named today are not flaws. They're the things a careful, wounded, serious person does when they have been trying for a long time and have not yet seen the return. They are intelligent adaptations to a painful reality. They made sense when they were built. They no longer make sense now. Something is already moving toward you. That part was true at the beginning, and it is still true now. The roots you built in the silence, they are real. The ceiling you have been bumping against, it is a calibration, not a verdict. The body you're walking around in it is not holding you back. It is waiting to be given permission to let go. The breakthrough happens inside first. The external world simply catches up. You have already done most of the work. What is left is the smallest, hardest thing. The willingness to stop defending the story that this is simply how your life goes, and to stand in the discomfort of believing even for one day that what is coming is actually coming. Tell me in the comments. What was happening in your life when you found this video? What was the sign? I read every one.